Ross Crystal here, and thanks for joining me once again on Upfront. My guest today is Emmy Award-winning sportscaster Lindsay Czarniak, who will be hosting for NBC and USA Network at the 2026 Olympics.
What I've learned about the Olympics is it's always a great opportunity. And I think that the faster, because it's people coming in from all these different work experiences, like the faster that you can just connect with people and really understand what people bring to the table, that's when it clicks.
Her start in the business, from marriage to Today Show co-host Craig Melvin, and the one gig outside her current job she'd love to do. Lindsay Czarniak joins me up front right here, right now. And joining me now up front, Lindsay Czarniak, a sportscaster, a podcaster, a broadcaster, a wife, a mother. What she doesn't do, I don't know where you get all the time. Lindsay, thank you for taking time out for joining me here on Upfront. And hi.
Hi, this is great. I don't know where you get your time. Where do you find your time?
Yeah, but
I know you don't sleep.
But you're right on that one. Can we go back? We'll get to the stuff that you're doing now, but you really did work your way through sports.
Mm-hmm.
And that begins in part because of your dad, right?
It does. It's yes. So my dad is a retired managing editor for USA Today, but he started as a writer, a beat writer. And so what's funny is when I was a kid, he moved from Pennsylvania to Virginia to work for USA Today. And it was when the paper began in 1982. And so, as a kid, I was probably like 6 at that time. I just remember him always being at these really cool places. And in the beginning, it was like, why do you have to leave again? Why are you doing this? Football stinks, because he'd be gone all the time. And then he was into horse racing and doing all this stuff. So then it just sort of became really cool for, when dad came back,
Mhm.
sometimes he would bring us things, but he also had these great stories. And occasionally we would be able to travel as a family with him. And I think, somehow that storytelling, I guess, passion kind of developed in me as well. Because I wasn't sure. I was like, I actually really thought I wanted to do news. My dream job in the beginning first was to do MTV. I wanted to be a music and a VJ on MTV. I was obsessed with music. But then I was like, I really would like to do news, and maybe I could follow in the steps one day of Katie Couric, which is funny because I married the person that kind of
We'll get
did that.
It's exactly
So,
true. You kind of
right.
cross paths with her in a
We
way.
kind of like, "Rah, rah." Yeah, right. So, but yeah, it was, and it's funny because my dad, once I realized, okay, this is the lane I want to be in, I want to do broadcasting television, it really kind of lit me up. I remember when I took this class in college, I went to James Madison University, and it was, we had this practicum where we had to put on a show, and we had
Uh-huh.
to be every single role that it took to put on a television show. And when it was my turn for like 3 days to do the hosting and have a co-host, I was like, this would not even feel like work. Like, I just, something about it. I loved it so much. I loved specifically like interacting with someone too. Um, so that's sort of where the love of it like began for me. And then I think as it relates to my dad, he's sort of always my go-to sounding board with stuff too. And it's been that way for a long time. Like when I was in local, even in Miami, Jacksonville, DC, and then even at Sports Center, like he's always someone that I would be like, hey, here's what the circumstance is. How would you handle this? Or what do you think? Or how would you approach this PR person? So it has become a really cool thing, I think, between the two of us too. But I did not see myself becoming a sportscaster, and I'm so grateful for the way that that happened, because the storytelling in sports, I would not have sought it out, and I love it so much. And I also love the event coverage. So I just, I feel really grateful that that's kind of where this crazy wild path has taken me.
When you say paths, different times, but we hit pretty much the same spots. Washington, D.C., of course, which we'll get to, but also South Florida, because that's where I kind of really stepped into the business as well. Me and radio, you and television, you were WTVJ there, Channel
Yeah.
4. Was it 4? No, it was 6. They changed by the time you were there.
Six.
When
It was TVJ 6.
it was
Yeah.
6. When I was there, it was Channel 4. owned by Wometco. By the time you were there, I think NBC owned it, or
Yep, it was an NBC O&O.
that's how the difference is in when we were there. But it was a good place to break into the business in certain instances. You also did
Oh
horse
yeah.
racing. What your dad did covered the horse racing biz. What was that?
Yeah.
What
Well,
was
and
that like
really
for you?
um amazing. I mean, that's been like full circle and really I keep feeling like I'm gonna mess it up and get fired from this opportunity because it's so awesome. But real quick to the Miami. Yes, like South Florida was such a great place. Like, and the whole thing with me being in South Florida, that was the first place that I transitioned to covering sports. And
Oh,
the gig was I met these guys at a race. I was at a NASCAR race.
uh-huh.
That's a whole separate story, but I had started covering motorsports. I knew nothing about motorsports, but I had this opportunity. It was amazing. And they basically taught me everything that I needed to know. So I was working in motorsports. I was waiting to do an interview, and I met this group from Miami, this crew, and they ended up sharing that they had a job opening. So one thing led to another. I got the job in Miami, but that job was to be the third sportscaster in the department at
Uh-huh.
NBC and also to report, and then eventually host a show called Fins TV, which was behind the scenes inside the Miami Dolphins because our station was the Dolphins partner. And that was like the first thing that I did in sports that I'm like, that is a massive milestone that I think of for like just what kind of set up the next part of my career because it was this opportunity to really be around every single aspect of an NFL team because of our relationship with the Dolphins. And we were also covering them. We were journalists, of course, but it was just fascinating to me and awesome. And then the Marlins went to the World Series. That was unexpected. And then Shaq came to town, and it was like the perfect storm of awesomeness in sports. And so my memories of Miami, it was so hard to leave, so hard. In fact, I turned down the job like once before I accepted it. So thank God George Michael was willing to like take me back after I turned it down. But it was just hard to leave. I was like, A, you're in a beautiful place.
Hmm.
B, there's just this awesome culture, you know?
There's
And
something about it down there. There really is.
Yes.
And I went to I
And
went
there
to
are horses
the yeah,
too,
yeah,
you
but I
know,
went to the
Gulfstream.
university, so I was a Hurricane. You covered them too, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. We covered, I mean, the Hurricanes. Sean Taylor was with the Hurricanes at that point before I went to DC. Um, yeah, it was just magical.
You know, it's
And you
interesting.
asked about the horse. Yeah,
Go
no, go
ahead.
ahead.
Go. No, you go ahead. What
Um,
was magical? What was
I was
magical?
just going to say, Gulfstream was the first racetrack that my
Oh,
son was ever taken to. My dad took my son, but my dad covered horse racing as a beat writer for USA Today for years, and I got this opportunity out of nowhere probably 3 years ago. There's a group called America's Best Racing. They are the basically content arm of the Jockey Club who oversees
uh-huh.
horse racing. And they said, we have this legendary in the making horse named Flightline, and we're looking for someone to story tell around at the Breeders' Cup. And they were like, we know of, your family history with this. We wanted to know if you'd be interested. And I was like, yes. And so that was my foray into horse racing. And it was amazing and just really special because all of a sudden, I really love being in the barns. I just love like being around what it is. Like at an NFL game, I love being out there in the morning when guys are doing their warm-ups and it's like, you smell the grass, you're just like in it. And horse racing is the same thing, but it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. But I love being around the barns. And so there were people that my dad had always talked about that I was then like meeting, and it just felt really surreal and full circle because I was like, this is wonderful because I those animals are just beautiful. And I think the sport, has so many interesting pieces.
Sure. The first track I'd ever been to, when I was in college, first track I ever went to, and I'm sure you
Gulfstream.
covered Hialeah,
Oh yeah.
where
Yep.
they did the
Wow.
flamingos. They used to, or the fourth race, they used to put the flamingos around the track. And but that's when I hear you, you have exude this passion for the business in whichever
Oh,
end you're in. You just breathe it, don't you?
thanks. Well, I think I've learned that like I'm very interested in things that you learn along the way. And if
Hmm.
sports has been a vehicle, I love stakes that are high and I love an underdog. And like I love storylines. Like if I talk about George Mason winning the Final Four, I probably would still cry. Like, and that's still how I feel about like the Nationals finally winning a World Series, you know? I just think that there's so much life experience that we can all relate to in sports, for sure. And anyway, so that I think that's where it comes from. I think it's also like one of the things that makes me the most excited in what I do. And I think you and I are similar because you do a handful of different things, but the podcast I do is called Things No One Tells You. And it's
Ah,
because along the way, I love it when you're having a conversation with someone and they're like, yes, I did this, I accomplished this, but the thing no one tells you is da da da. And I just think there are so many things like that in life that are relatable to all of us that we don't often talk about. And in sports certainly is like a playground for that, you know? So I don't know.
I want to jump into that podcast because it really is very well done. But back up for a second. The years in Washington, you mentioned him, the George Michael Sports Machine. It was called. I remember it because I was up the street from that. That was an interesting way. It was a syndicated show. He was the local sportscaster there on WRC. You got a break, didn't you? That was a big deal for you. What did you do? What happened there in Washington?
Mhm. It was a break that I did not understand just what like the magnitude of what that would help in terms of my career. I think like going into it, George called me because he had seen me on motorsports coverage. He was watching Speed Channel and he saw me, and I didn't know that until years later, which is hilarious because he was just like looking for possible people who he could bring in to interview to replace the person that was leaving. And I was in Miami and he called me out of the blue, and I was at the airport waiting for Carlos Delgado, the baseball player. And
Hmm.
I thought George, I knew who George was. Like I was like, I had never met him. And he called, he's like, Lindsay Czarniak, George Michael. I thought he was going to ask for video of Carlos Delgado. I just assumed, I was like, hi. And he's like, I want to talk to you about coming up for an interview. Da, da, da. So one thing goes to another. He brings me up to Jacksonville to the Super Bowl. That's why we went to I met in Jacksonville to talk to me about the job. And I end up like talking and interviewing with everyone on his sports team. And what became really clear fast was like he was the boss. And you mentioned it, it's syndicated. So he had this very unique relationship with New York and the powers that be because he had this show that went out everywhere. He also ran the local sports department. That sports department had 6 minutes at 6 o'clock. We had 5 minutes, 50 seconds at 5 o'clock. So, like, that is an embarrassment of riches. Everyone else is like 3 minutes max.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
it was like, but also the way that he ran stuff, that was also like immediately apparent. I mean, that his whole team had to dress a certain way on Sundays. Everyone had one football game that you had to chart. Didn't matter if you were on air, producer, audio, whatever, you had to sit and log a game. And he catered it in. Like it was so structured. It was like the Belichick I would expect of a sports department. And it was awesome, but it was also terrifying because the way he talked was like, you're gonna come here and it's gonna be the best thing ever. And I'll introduce you to these people and all this and that. And I was absolutely interested because I loved what I was hearing from the producers that work for him. And I like that kind of like hard soccer coach mentality. I respond well to that. However, I ended up turning the job down. And that happened
Why?
because I was like, because I went back and forth. And it's one of those business deals. Like when they realized in Miami that I was talking to him about leaving, I actually was in a situation where I think my contract was actually up, but like no one had really noticed because I don't know. Right. So then they were like, well, hold on a minute. Yeah.
Your stock went up when that happened.
Right. And so they were like, hey, we want you to stay. And they were very good about it. They were like, we would like you to, they wanted to elevate me in the department. They were offering me to do a talk show, which actually at the time I was like, that would be really amazing.
Uh-huh.
And I sort of was like scared. I was like, people kept saying, well, what's your gut? What's your gut? And I was like, I don't know because I overthink everything. Like, and so now my gut's buried somewhere within all these thoughts and I just can't find it. And the second I called him and was like, thank you so much, but I'm sorry, I'm going to stay. I hung up that phone And I knew. And I was like, oh, crap, that's my gut. And I realized my main lesson in that whole thing, what happened was 3 weeks went by. I was miserable. I'm like, I'm in South Florida, which is the most amazing place. I have these amazing work opportunities, but I just felt this gnawing, like, what have you done? And also, Northern Virginia is where I'm from. So I also was like turning down an opportunity to go and work in my home market,
Hometown.
right?
Yeah.
But I also, I kind of felt like I was sort of like kind of caving in or kind of like giving up if I went home, which is ridiculous because the market was like so much higher. But I just felt like I've been out on this train of like hopping every 2 years. And if I do this, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do stuff with NBC Sports because they were talking to me at the time. And anyway, I knew, and I was like, that is my gut. Now I know how to find my gut. I know when I have decisions, if I like poll three people, as soon as the person gives me the answer that I really want, that's when I know what my gut is. I know that sounds so stupid. But anyway, I called
Say that
George
part again.
back.
Say that part again.
So if I have a decision that I'm like really agonizing over,
Right.
I've learned not to poll a million people, but I will maybe sometimes choose like the three people that I'm gonna like just confide in and use as sounding boards. And I have found with myself that if
Got it.
I'm really like not able to find it, when I explain the situation and ask the person like, "What are your thoughts?" I will ask someone until I hear the thing that I want. Like so I know this sounds so weird, but
No, it
it's like
doesn't. Not to me, it doesn't.
it's become a tactic that I'm like, okay, here's what Lindsay really wants. But my point is, I decided I was going to call him back. I had one person who was my ally on the inside of my station, who I owe so much to. Do you know Tony Segreto? Do
Absolutely.
you remember Tony?
No, absolutely.
Tony,
He was a fixture there when I was down there.
he's amazing.
He's
And
terrific.
Tony filled in for George.
Hmm.
George was unable to do the sports machine. And Tony knew George better than anyone. And Tony was like, I can help you navigate this. If you really think that you want to try and get this opportunity back, he might not say yes, but I will help you. And Tony like really put his neck out there to help me with that because the station was not happy. And what happened was I was waiting in line at a car wash
Hmm.
in Miami. And I'm in my little silver Honda Civic. And I'm like, dial the number. And I scratched it out on this like napkin. And I was like, George answers, hello. And I'm like, George Hayes. I was like, this is Lindsay. I'm so embarrassed. But I wanted to call you back. I know that this sounds whatever I said. And I was like, but if there's any chance that the opportunity still exists, I would really love the chance to come and work with you. And he was like, well, time has passed, dot, dot, dot. I'm going to get back to you. Bye. So we get off the phone, and at least like I felt better for making the call. I didn't know at that time if he was going to say yes or no. But he ended up calling back and saying yes. And it was awesome. It was the best move like I ever made. My dad, when I turned down the job,
Hmm.
was like, I had someone else I work with who, when I went back and asked for it, someone at the station was like, you just committed career suicide. And I was like, oh, no. Anyway, I went to DC and it was like boot camp, and he introduced me to all these people. But the biggest thing was like understanding the way that he operated and what he did and the way that he conducted himself around people. It's like all about the people anyway.
Yeah.
And he would just really respect people's time. He would have this very strict policy. Like we were on an interview, and if he found out that we asked more than 6 questions in the sit down with like Rafael Palmeiro or whoever it was, he'd be
Hmm.
like, you would get reamed, because the whole thing is you have to leave the person wanting to come back. You respect their time. It was just really great.
He developed all this stuff himself because, when I was a little kid, I remember George, a little kid growing up in New York. I listened to him on the radio on WABC radio.
The
He was a disc
DJ,
jockey.
right?
Yeah. So he developed
Yes.
all this stuff himself, which is kind of interesting. He had that discipline uh, to kind of forge and develop a sports, I don't know, a sports, not just syndicated show, but a way in what you're saying, a way to,
Yeah,
would you say he changed the business in a way?
I do think so, because I think he created a certain standard for it. And I think that, and like the way that it's implemented, there's no question that like Sports Center, there are flashes of George. There are like the way that he did it for sure with ESPN. I think the other thing is, you talk about him being a disc jockey. He would, when we were editing pieces for Sports Machine, we would sit in the edit bay. We would do our stories where we would have the tracks written out
Hmm.
before sometimes we did the interview. So you would write the track, you would lead to the soundbite that you were hoping to get,
Hmm.
and he would also make us record our audio, back timing it like radio, like you're hitting a break.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the break was the sound bite. So like I don't know if that's weird for people to conceptualize, but it's like you have to get what you're saying, say it's three sentences, and you have 40 seconds to do it, but you have to do it in a way that like less is more. He would always say, Czarniak, remember KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Like his whole thing was built on being relatable to anyone that was watching that show. The Sports Machine, like anyone watching could find a way to be touched by a story because they weren't being dragged into the weeds of it. Like, I mean, I remember times that like I was trying to be, oh, I know so much and like throwing stats in and stuff or whatever during a piece that I was writing, and he'd be like, get that out of there. Like you, yeah, seriously. And it was just really a great education and like, just some
So,
of the skills to help.
so George Michael did you a very, very big favor. Not only did he bring you into the fold of NBC and NBC Sports and WRC TV, he, in a way, brought you to your future husband.
He did. Isn't that funny? He
How
did.
did
Yeah.
explain that? How did you guys meet? Explain the meeting with you guys.
So I think so you first I need to set the scene
Go ahead.
that we didn't our where we worked in sports intentionally, George had created a space for our sports department to be downstairs. So we did not have a ton of interaction with the upstairs news department. And I think he thought things worked better that way, but it just kind of stayed that way after it was created that way. So I say that because I wasn't always privy to what exactly was going on upstairs because we were very siloed. Um, I went to cover the Olympics in Beijing for NBC, and
Uh-huh.
I was there for 3 weeks, and it was 2008 in the summer. And I come back and I have my first night on TV hosting, anchoring the weekend sports. It was probably a Saturday night. So it was my first day back from China. They were renovating our studio. So we were working out of this makeshift set studio on the second floor. So I was fine. I knew I was going to be on time, but I, had all my scripts, was running up during the commercial break. And because of like navigating the elevator and figuring out that whole thing for the first time, which I probably should have like, plotted out,
Uh-huh.
I was kind of pushing. So I slide in to this set and I turn around and I'm like, who is this guy? Like, I don't know, like, who is this? And the man next to me, who I've never seen before, is like, oh, look who came back from China. And I was like, oh, hi, like, who are you? And so they had hired Melvin while I was gone,
Good.
and he was sitting there on the set, the new news guy. So
Did he
it
say,
was
"Hi,
funny
I'm"?
because
Did he introduce himself? I'm Craig. Did that?
he did.
Okay.
He did. But I was like, who is this guy? Because he was so outwardly like happy and overly effusive. And I kind of felt like I needed to pee on my territory. You know what I mean? Like I was like, what are you doing? Hi, who are you? And I'm like, Steve, who is the weather guy. Like, what's this dude? Um, but anyway, it was very nice meeting him. He was fine, fine, normal. And then our station asked us to do a pilot together for a show called Daily Connection. And in that show, it was like a show basically full of just ad lib banter and stuff where you're tossing to different segments. And it kind of feels like the third hour of the Today Show. And so we were doing that. And I was just like, this guy's kind of fun. Like I really like working with him. Like it was really fun to interact. I was kind of talking about how that was sort of one of the things that I love so much about just doing TV is like when you can just have general chemistry conversation with someone. And that was that. And then I was hosting an event and it was the sneaker ball in DC. Our station had a table and they brought him to kind of introduce him to people in town. My parents were there at the table because I was emceeing and my parents were like, "This guy is great," and he kept bringing wine to the table,
Uh-huh.
and they they were like, "Who's this person?" And anyway, afterwards, we were kind of walking around together. I was like introducing him to some folks I know, and then yeah, he kind of tried to pick me up that night, and I was like, "No, like who's?" No, I'm not going to do that with someone I work with. And who are you anyway? But no, we started like hanging out a little bit. And then so we had a first version and then we had a hard stop and then we reconnected, and the rest is history.
So you didn't know this was going to be your husband at first. You kind of worked into that, or
Yeah,
did you?
totally. No, totally worked into that. Had no idea. And in fact, the first time he called me to like ask me to like call me after he asked for my number, his name came up in my phone as Jake Milstein because Jake Milstein was a producer at WRC where we work. And he had a station phone, and all of our phones were programmed in. And Jake had moved to Seattle to take a job, and Melvin got the phone issued by the station
That's
that
so
Jake had
funny.
used, and Jake's name was still programmed. So every time Melvin called me, he's Jake Milstein. So he's still in my phone is Jake Milstein. So my kids think it's hilarious because anytime we're driving and Jake Milstein pops up, they'll be like, "Oh, Dad's calling." And I'm like, people that see my phone think that I'm doing something that's inappropriate with Jake Milstein. Amanda, you know what I mean? Like it is, I am very superstitious. I have a problem with like I am. And anyway,
Can
so
I
that's so funny. It's so random.
can I tell you? I looked at a number of your podcasts and the things no one tells you, and
Oh,
little did I know Craig Melvin is a candle maker.
he is. Yes. In
So
fact.
your husband has it's,
One of
he,
them.
he's
Isn't
become
this beautiful?
yeah.
It
I
says
mean, he
Melvin
does.
Made.
Oh, wow. How
Yeah, and
look,
this one smells really good. This is the Lindsay. I'm biased.
I will tell
But
you that really, I said, wow, this is interesting. I mean, it's strange, but it's interesting. It's a whole different hobby. I've never heard anybody doing that before. That's a whole different show. Actually, we should do this again one day because there's the whole aspect of having the business marriage. It's very interesting in our business and how that
you
works.
know what? It is. And well, yeah. Have you experienced
No,
that?
I'm on the other side of you guys.
No?
Dated, never been,
Yeah,
never
it
been.
is.
So I'm on the other side. So I have the perspective of listening and watching right
Yeah,
back through Washington and what makes for good marriages and not and all that stuff. I'll listen to you.
it is. Well, it's what's interesting about it is it goes back sometimes to like thinking about my dad because in the beginning, I remember my dad saying like so we were in DC. We ended up starting to date. People kind of found out because that was a whole thing. Because that's real. Like you're not supposed to
Sure.
anyway. So then it was like, okay, now we're in love and we get engaged and all that. And then we both of our contracts were up at the same time, and that never happens. I mean, like that's kind of rare. And we both had opportunities, and we were like, for him, he got an opportunity in Atlanta or up in New York to go to MSNBC. And I was like, well, I could make Atlanta work. I had a really great opportunity in Atlanta. And I think that's why we realized that that could work for him. And then ESPN. And so we were like, no, we're going to do the direction of the ESPN, MSNBC. And when we left, what was my point? That we our contracts were up in the summer in August. We were getting married in October. So we
Uh-huh.
came back to DC to get married, which was kind of strange, right? So, and we moved up to Connecticut because we were halfway. And so I was really excited. I knew I wanted to take the step to see what it was like at a national level. I was excited about doing Sports Center, but there was a lot of uncertainty because they didn't know exactly which Sports Center I was going to do when I started. So I was like, okay, working overnights, doing this, just had to kind of get your foot in the door in the system.
Mhm.
And in the beginning, it was like he was kind of getting the grunt work. He was having to like go and travel for 2 weeks go to LA to do, which was great for him. But it's like, I was like, what have we done? We've moved to the suburbs in Connecticut. I'm working overnights. And also, like it's a totally different feel because I was doing just like constant highlights and I'm feeling like I can't touch my audience like I could in DC. Like I kind of knew and I felt who I was connecting with, right? So that was a big like lesson for me. It's like, oh, okay, so that's very important to me, I guess, is like just finding that connection and understanding, or maybe there's purpose wrapped up in that. I don't know. But yeah, so it was really wild. So we did that and then moved. But my dad, I remember during those times, like we had this one weekend off together that was like the first day we had had off together, probably in like 2 months. And we were going to do something in the area. And Melvin called and he goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. They're sending me to Brattleboro, Vermont. There was some story, and I think it might have been bad weather, so it was probably serious in Brattleboro. And I was just like, no. And I called my dad and I was like, what are we? I don't know what to do. And my dad was like, you got to get your shit together. You've got to realize that like in this business, just like you just have to make the most of the times that you have together. Like, and that has always stuck with me. And it's true. And my mom has always given really great advice too. It's like you, we are lucky to have these jobs that are really fun and rewarding and awesome. But it's like, and I think that that's kind of what separates people that end up staying in the business versus leaving because it's like, it's hard, it's not easy. And there's stuff like that. There's giving up holidays. But I have found that it is nice to, when he has something come up, it doesn't, we joke about Brattleboro all the time, but like, it doesn't feel like that anymore. I'm like, okay, I know that it's something that he's got to do. I know he's excited about it. If an interview comes up or breaking news happens, it's part of the deal. And I do think that we're able to like give each other grace with that stuff more because we know like the why behind it. Um, but there are definitely still times that I'm like, Dad, I'm kidding.
With the thing on Craig, did you know he had this candle hobby?
So it was sort of, he wanted to investigate what it was like to pour candles because he's always liked candles. And, he has shared that he was talking to his therapist who was like, what do you like to do on the side? And I think it's sort of a product of the nature of what he does for a living. It is so busy. And because
Mhm.
you're in the business, the morning show situation is like, I think the part that people don't see is like, he's on air from 7 till 10. And I think that's the easiest part of his day. Like there's just so much that happens after that. There's so much demand of his time. It is a well-oiled machine. So like, and also when he gets home and then you're going to bed and you're getting notes about the morning. So it's like just this constant kind of cycle. And he loves what he does. So it's like there's also added pressure to just keep performing, grinding. Like, I do think it was Katie Couric who, like, famously said she was always worried about getting fired. Do you know what I mean? And like, that you're there for a reason and it's not going to happen, but it's just like, it's just a weird
I got it.
ecosystem. So, yeah. And I say that because everyone needs a release, everyone needs an outlet. And he has started becoming really engaged in the thought that like people that are high achievers, they really have these side things. It can be a really simple hobby. It can be whatever it is, something with your hands. But so his therapist was talking to him about that very thing. And Melvin was like, and he said, what do you do with your hands? And Melvin was like, well, I don't know. Like I've dabbled in woodworking, but so he realized that like candles really mean something to him and he wanted to try it. So he started pouring in our kitchen and I honestly was like, this is great. I want him to do this. And it's really interesting. I love candles. But then, I would start pulling these like kitchen utensils out of our dishwasher and they would be covered in soy wax. And I was like, you cannot use the like the measuring cup that we use for pancakes in your candles because now the pancakes are going to taste like soy wax. So like it became this back and forth argument over his stuff on the counter, like his like liquid heater, you know what I mean? Like all this stuff. So I'm like, there has to be a better solution. And we couldn't really find something to build for him because we didn't necessarily have like space for that type of thing. But we were like, well, maybe the garage, like, our garage
Right.
is heated, which is crazy, like, you know, bougie, whatever. I'd never had a heated garage, but I was like, that could work. And I kind of had this corner of the garage where I was like, what would you think about this for your like creative setup? And he was open to it. So we created this sort of candle making corner, which, is going to have a neon sign for him and his brand in the corner when it arrives. But anyway, so he has now taken this to a totally new level, decided that he wanted to just pursue this also as something to do for good. So he has partnered basically with certain charities that mean something to him and to us, to our family. And he's created candles with the idea of a certain smell that brings up nostalgia or something that he really likes. And is sort of doing it to honor people that, people have lost so it's really cool. I mean, it
That's
is, and he
really
has a candle mentor.
something. That
Yeah,
is
his
that
candle
is
mentor is in Virginia, Richmond, Allen. So it's a whole thing. He has a whole team. It's amazing. And Ross,
hmm?
Oprah just chose Melvin Made candles as her number 4 favorite things for the holiday. I mean, are you
Uh-oh.
kidding?
That means you know what that means. That means the orders are going to fly in. He's not
Yes.
going to be able to fulfill the orders. That's a good
I mean,
position to
it's
be in.
yeah, yeah. So
He's
I'm
going to
really
get
proud
that's
of
going to
him.
be really popular. That's fantastic. Yeah,
It's a passion. It has been a ton of work, and like he's,
that's fan.
gone on trips to see the stuff and figured it out. So it's been really great.
Do you have a hobby?
I do. I really love art. Like I do. I take an art class because I really enjoy watercolor, and I've been working on the same book for like 3 years, Humpty Dumpty, because I was like, I need a portfolio. Someone had asked me for one time when we were talking about a kid's book, and I was like, oh, I don't have an actual portfolio. But so I do take a class here in town, and I love it. But the outlet that I have recently started doing is improv. And there's this improv acting class that I found in my town. And I've like dabbled in theater. I really enjoy theater. And improv though is something totally different. And I signed up for this class and it is absolutely terrifying, but it is so much fun. And it's like I really have found kind of like Melvin like finds the candle making to be this release, like
Mhm.
gets him totally out of the mind of what he does during work. With me, the improv is like you really can't do anything else but pay attention to what the person or the group of people that you're working with on stage are doing because that's the whole story behind improv. So I get so nervous before, but it's like doing it. I love challenging myself in a way that like this makes me nervous and I'm going to do it and I don't feel like it's been a home run when I'm done, but there's something that has me keep wanting to like coming back. You know what I mean? So
What
I like
terrifies
to
you?
do
What's
that.
the part that terrifies you?
Well, I think part of the biggest challenge is like you're not supposed to try to be funny. And I think the biggest fear of being up on a stage for improv is that you're going to do something that's like just ridiculous and boring, or like you're just gonna like be an idiot and not know what to do. So it's that. And it's also that my perception is our teacher is this amazing guy, Mike, who was at Second City. So like my perception is that everyone in that class is like they're kind of like have some sort of professional acting somewhere in their path. And, I kind of don't. So like that, it's just that. It's like imposter syndrome. Like but it's such a great community. It really is. And it's just so much fun. So, and I have found that it has made me look at scenarios in life differently because oftentimes at improv, our teacher will throw out a scenario, and that's where the acting will begin with two people on stage. And it could be like, you are at a, car garage where blah, blah, blah. And so there are certain things now that when I'm in my daily life, I'm like, oh, this would be a phenomenal scene. Like, getting stuck in an elevator, whatever it is. It's so I'm sure I think that it really keeps you on your toes in a way that has gotta, I think, help you in other scenarios.
Could you do, he probably would never do it, but could you ever foresee doing something with Craig in an improv special day, special class?
Oh
Be
my
a riot.
God. I
I
mean,
think it'd be a
maybe
riot.
he would be great.
Yeah.
I think he would be great. I would love one day, I would love to work with him in some capacity, just doing something, whether it's a project or, because he's fun and he's really fun to like just work off of. He's a great like team player in that regard. So that would be a blast, but we'll see.
What you've got, as I mentioned, so many things, so many irons in the fire, but things are happening at breakneck speed for the Olympics. So you're going to be working that. I know that. Bring me up to date with what you have going.
So I'm really excited to do the Olympics again. I've done it several times, but sorry, I'm not yawning at you. This is like my
This is what
afternoon. I need another
happens.
coffee.
This is what happens with the hours we work.
It is. And then it's like when you're using energy. I'm so excited because I'm going to be hosting a day part on USA Network. And my day part is afternoon into early evening. And it's essentially like a lot of live coverage. Some stuff will be on tape, but I love it because the Winter Olympics, I really enjoy the different, competitions they have. I love how there are things that you never would see otherwise, like biathlon. And I really enjoy when we have analysts come in that are like with a sport, like I'm talking about that you're not used to. It's really refreshing and interesting. But the last Olympics I worked, when I did a day part on USA Network, we were overnights. And so it was really, it was challenging, but it was also sort of invigorating because I really had to flip my body routine. And like our whole group
Mhm.
was obviously in that same boat. And so there was really something cool about having everybody sort of bond over that. So I think that that's really cool. What I've learned about the Olympics is it's always a great opportunity. And I think that the faster, because it's people coming in from all these different work experiences, like the faster that you can just connect with people and really understand what people bring to the table, that's when it clicks, because there aren't many other experiences that you have like that, where there are people that you may not have ever met before coming together to put on a television show that's like really consequential coverage,
Yeah.
for a few weeks. So it's a really big challenge, but it's awesome. And I love being a part of NBC for it. Like I love the NBC family. So I'm doing that and I'm doing some college basketball for NBC, which is really I'm very excited about. I'm going to do women's college hoops and a lot of it is focused on the Big East, so that'll be a lot of fun. And yeah,
And
so
you've got the
good stuff.
podcast where people can
Yes.
find you on a regular basis.
So
Go ahead, tell
the
them where.
podcast Things No One Tells You. And you can find it anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, on YouTube, if you want to watch. It's been so much fun. I love hearing from people too about topics that they love to hear. Like, what are people intrigued by is the thing no one tells you about? Because I think there are a lot of like heavy topics, certainly, and light topics, that just everybody sort of thinks about, but maybe doesn't really discuss openly. Um, so yes, and on Instagram, I'm Lindsay CZ. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Lindsay Czarniak. So
And finally, is
all the
there's
places.
all the places you would think wherever you want, you're there. If you think about it, are you on TikTok?
Thank you.
Are you on
What'd
TikTok?
you say?
Are you on TikTok also?
I'm dabbling and getting on. I should be on TikTok, and I know that's ridiculous, and I'm saying I'm not.
Not
So I'm
necessarily.
working on it. Are
Now,
you?
yeah, I am now. I'm like you. It's the way it's what you do. It's the distribution portion. And by the way, when you're doing the Olympics, you still going to do your regular podcast? How are you going to work that into the schedule?
Well, I am.
Wow.
We have a lot of things planned that we will be able to have like sort of at the ready. Um, but also I'm excited about trying to weave in some of that coverage maybe into the conversation.
Finally, what I was going to ask you is, what would you like to do that you haven't done? Dream wish right now. In or out of this business?
I would love to, in some capacity, be a nurse in a TV show. I know that sounds so weird,
You mean
but I
not
am
really
fat.
in the hospital in a TV show?
Well, because I was having this come to Jesus because my mom had a recent hospital stay for back surgery. And I just found myself I was so fascinated and blown away by every single nurse and like doctor. I love that world. And I was like, at this stage in the game, I don't think nursing school is really like, you know what I mean? Like that would take a long time. It would be, and so I was thinking like maybe at some point
I,
I would like to dabble. Like, could I?
I could play one
have a
on TV.
cameo in it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could play one on
But no,
TV.
I don't know. In terms of sports, and like what people are used to with my stuff, I love live coverage and I do love the storytelling too. So for me, like my favorite types of things are like if you're able to have a pregame situation where you're talking about the stakes that are about to happen and you can sort of mix in reporting that you've done because you've been around it and had time. So in some capacity, like hosting pregame of something would be a dream job too at this point.
Well, Lindsay Czarniak, I know your schedule is going to be packed over the next few months with the Olympics, but as things calm down, love to pick up on this. And then I hear that you, with the nursing thing, you kind of like to act. That's me, but we can talk about that down the road. I just
I know,
there's
yeah, I would
yeah,
love to talk to you more about that. I would
I
love
love
to talk to you. I would you on
yeah.
my podcast.
That would be terrific. That would be terrific too. We do really do similar things.
Yeah.
You're a delight. Continued success. We'll talk again.
Thank
Break
you.
a leg, break a leg. Don't break a leg, but break a leg on the coverage at the Olympics. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.